do every. I thought you were going to finish my sentence.
Every other.
Yeah, every
other
word
for
the
introduction.
Yes.
That's weird. Welcome.
This is Almost Professional. I'm Jim. This is Chris. And our special guest for tonight, Greg Blue. He's one of our local high school coaches. And because we're intimate with CrossFit, and Greg is a fan of CrossFit, but not necessarily one of the trainers up at the gym all the time. Wanted to be able to bring in an outsider to be able to talk to everybody tonight about rowing. I think a question that a lot of people have looking at this is honestly, why am I rowing? Like, we only have so many rowers, and we come in and we're absolutely breaking people off. Like, what does that mean for me as an athlete if I'm being told, I need you to come in and do a 40-20 split or a 60-40 split?
Especially if you hate rowing, if that's something that you're just, and if you hate it, it's probably because you're not good at it, would be my guess. And then you're coming in and you're like, God dang, I'm going to row again?
I think I'm good at rowing, but I still hate rowing.
Well, I mean, the actual question is, how much work can you get done in a short amount of time?
Okay.
We're doing these 30-20s or 30-10s or 50-20s or 60-20s. They're horrible workouts, horrible workouts, because it just hits you in the anaerobic capacity. And that's one of the things that we want to build upon throughout this program. But a lot of people don't understand it. So anaerobic capacity, what are we talking about there?
So basically what you're saying is your capacity of your muscles to work without oxygen. So aerobic capacity is when you have plenty of oxygen. So think longer, slower, 5K, something like that.
Yo, bro, did you write Google? That sounds like
anaerobic is,
that's pretty good.
So I'm going to go short term, hard as I can go, and your muscles immediately get depleted of oxygen. That's why you breathe so hard right away.
So it's like our Fran.
Right.
Okay.
So what about some of the form that we see inside the gym? Because, I mean, that's some of the things that cause a lot of issues when rowing becomes a problem.
So I mean, a lot of the stuff that I see as a coach is like dipping the chain, people coming way off the platform, so their foot is disconnecting from the platform when they're doing their row. Or you see people that are like, they're putting weights behind the rower because they're like yanking it. They're moving the rower with them. So, trying to find an explanation on why
curving of the back,
just
bad posture the whole time. Yeah, there's so many different things that the rower should have you do, or should get you into that correct posture, I guess, that we have a lot of people that just don't do it properly. But even after a couple of years, man, we're still having issues with it. So, what's the best way to fix it?
I don't know. That's why we're doing this. You tell us.
That is true.
We kind of talked about, we touched on the split, right? Which I think if anybody that hasn't been in the gym is looking at, they're looking at they're wondering what the 60-20, 40-20 is. So I guess let's start on that. Like, why are we doing, in CrossFit Granbury, why are we doing a 40-20 or 60-20? What does that mean?
Okay, so when you start out doing normal Tabata is just 20 10s, 8 sets, which is great. It's still a great workout. But
which is 20 seconds on, 10 seconds of rest.
Perfect. So as you build on top of that, it's really just trying to see what you're capable of over a certain amount of time. So if I tell you I want you to work out for 40 seconds as hard as you can go, give me 20 seconds off while still rowing. That's another issue I see inside the gym, is that people tend to stop on that rower on that 20-second break. So when you do that, what happens to your flywheel?
Oh, like a total stop.
Yeah, it just stops.
Yeah.
So when you start,
like I'm barely going.
Exactly. So when you start back over on that 40 seconds and your flywheel is moving at half the speed it was when you were doing the last
get
set,
that.
You got to start working.
Very
again.
first one.
Exactly.
And
then bad form starts to take place, and then you're not getting the wattage that you're supposed to be getting. So it just takes a little bit of time. So over time, what we're trying to do is a 21-week program that we've been working on trying to build up anaerobic capacity. So in a certain amount of time, we want you to be able to work harder in that longer time frame. That way, when you get back to that 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, that you're actually able to pull 400 watts, and it's not a big deal anymore. If you can do it at, say, 40 seconds, there's no reason you can't do it at 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're just overworking yourself for those 20 weeks, trying to build yourself up, build up your capacity to work harder in a short amount of time. Looking for power, obviously. We're looking for wattage, which is going to be, judging your power. How can you do it? The other day when we did 50-20s, I was actually very impressed with a lot of the athletes that were able to keep up with the wattage that I was giving them.
Yeah.
However, I think that the athletes should keep up with their wattage and figure out, hey, what's a good test for me versus, hey, what's the trainer going to give me? today. And that's one of the issues I saw the other day was, hey, what do you want me to do? What are you capable of doing?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah, and so I guess maybe as a not like somebody out looking inside to the CrossFit realm from outside, because I mean obviously you coach kids all day long. So how can you take something like rowing that we're doing in a CrossFit environment and turn that into, okay, here's how any athlete can use this to improve their sport?
As far as rowing goes, because there's so much different, like it's a multi-joint exercise. So if you have, say, tightness or rounding of the back in deadlift, it's going to show up in rowing. So if you're working on those things on the rower and improving that, then maybe you can improve it. It carries over to some of your other stuff.
Well, and you can find out who's having issues with what hemisphere of the body, whether it's a lower hemisphere or upper hemisphere, the minute they get off that rower and like, oh man, my butt cheeks are so tight. Well, what do you think you're working with more? You're trying to drive with the legs harder than you're pulling with the arms.
And I bet if you pull too early on the rower, you probably pull too early on the power clean.
Yeah, it's a good. Bergner always says that if you bend the arms too early, you lose power. It's the same way with the rower, just like it is with a power clean. I mean, it's all about form on the rower. You got to make sure that you're looking for efficiency versus I'm trying to put out as much power as I can. We have athletes in here that can put out great power, but burn out so quick. If you look at Blake Shaper, the dude is very efficient.
Straight called out on YouTube. Yeah, you're welcome, Blake.
No.
I'm talking to you.
No. I'm actually giving Blake a compliment. Blake has efficiency and power at the same exact time.
Yeah, he's a great rower.
So that's a great thing for him because he can out-row most people because he's learned that it's not just about power. I think when Blake first started rowing, I think he was thinking that it was about power. But now that he's put a lot of time on that rower, he knows now that, hey, it's not just about that long pull and power. It's about efficiency on the rower. I think the dude's a great rower.
So really quick, could we go to the rower and see maybe how like I would row versus like how Greg
Real quick before we continue with the rower, can we please talk about how Greg just threw a protein bar out of his shorts? We've been sitting here talking.
When you say out of my shorts, that makes it sound like somewhere
Well,
else.
he pulled it out of his crotchal region.
Yeah,
but he definitely pulled it out of his pocket.
It was in the pocket.
All right,
These are really good.
Pocket.
So I'm starting.
Okay. So one of the things to think about, if you notice, you can listen, a little bit, we slowed it down, but notice how the bar and the chain tend to hit that rectangular square right there on the front of the rower. So one thing that we could do to fix Greg's rowing is we could take a chalk line and give him a spot to shoot for. So now Greg, try to keep that in between those chalk lines. Still maintaining power. So now he's having to work to keep his chain inside of that square. He's also driving back with his legs and he's finishing with his arms, which is part of the rowing process. This is called the catch at the beginning, right? Here, the catch, where he's starting that movement. Then he's driving with his legs. Then now he's finishing with his arms. As he breaks the arms coming back in, this is called the recovery. Down for just a quick second. Go back to the very starting position. This position right here is called the catch. This is where you're going to start all of your movement. Now, from here, you're going to drive with your legs. This is called the drive. So as he drives those legs back, this is called the finish position, right? So we're finishing it up at the chest. Now, one thing to think about, I see a lot of athletes that like to lean back, and that's perfectly fine. But we don't want to go too far, right? So we want to make sure that we have good posture on the back end. So pull all the way to your chest. This is the finish position. So now from there, we want to go to the recovery position, which is unlocking the arms, bringing it back, and then the knees will return over, and now we've got our movement back to the catch. So we're looking at the catch, the drive, the finish, the recovery, and then back to the catch.
So where should this be? Because it makes contact with pretty much everybody. Where's it going to hit?
We want to pull to the chest every single time. Some people, I see it on the rower. Can you show me one where people pull over the head?
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Really? Over the head?
We've all seen that before, right? So, yeah.
No way.
We've all seen people in the rower. Shelby, you've seen that, right?
Yeah, trying to maximize the
you're trying to
reach,
maximize your movement on the rower.
I have seen people pull to the chin because they think that little bit more pull.
Yeah. Or they pull the wrist in.
Yeah. Everybody has a different movement on the rower. I'm not going to sit there and tell you that I'm an expert on the rower. I'm not going to sit there and tell you that.
I know sometimes it's hitting here to keep it in that box.
Yeah.
It was hitting a little bit lower on me.
Yeah, and you notice earlier when you were doing that, before I put that box on there, it was kind of kicking up. And you can hear that chain hitting a little bit.
Especially when I was hitting, like if I make contact like that.
Yeah. So Greg's a very strong athlete. So when he's trying to finish that movement and bringing the rower all the way back to his chest and popping, the difference you see here is that it looks like Greg is driving partial with his legs, but he's really finishing hard up top with his arms.
Yeah, I am. I feel it. I'm like, bam.
So what we see a little bit every now and then in the gym is the athletes who are driving so hard with their legs, and what happens to the rower when they do that? It's popping back.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Gerald does that a lot. I mean, he pulls like a mother, right like here. He's like, ah! And it's like, whew.
That's the mother I want. So we you know, remember that it's both hemispheres of the body. It's both lower and upper part of the body, and we want to make sure that we're driving equally with the legs and we're pulling equally with the arms. If you have one section of your body that's working harder than the other, that can become a problem. When I first was introduced to the rower at the DPS Academy, I drove so hard with my legs because the instructor was like yelling at me. And the first time I stood up off the rower after rowing 2,000 meters, I rode it in about 7:22, which really wasn't the greatest, but I mean, I worked hard for it. The minute I stood up, my butt cheeks locked up, my legs locked up, and I literally fell off the rower. And it was embarrassing. And you want to make sure that you're not building up that lactic acid too hard, too fast in somebody's body.
Yeah.
But you know, Greg's got a really good pull. Everything looks fine. I think slowing down his recovery into the box and making sure that he's actually getting inside those lines.
So make sure that those lines are supposed to be kind of lower. Like
exactly, making sure that
seems
it's not
low to me where it is.
Yeah, and you don't want it to bounce. If you're hearing that chain move too hard inside that box, can you show me what I'm talking about? You hear that? Hear the clicking? How that chain is clicking. You're pulling too hard. You're not efficient in your row. You're really trying to get power, which is a great thing. But over time, it's going to be a problem.
So talk a little bit about what is the chain, like what happens before what? Because a lot of people, they'll do this right there.
Yeah. So you're looking for that chain to just basically roll itself up. All right, and we want to make sure that we're nice and smooth all the way in.
As low as you can.
You want to try to go in, but you don't want to push your head too far towards that monitor. So we want to be up in a good posture position, reaching in, and you want that chain being as close as possible to the box, and then pulling all the way out. So for us shorter people, Des, that's me and you, believe me, that's me and you. So we want to get the most efficient pull possible. So we want to try to move that chain all the way in as close as possible, and then pull all the way out as much as possible. Taller athletes don't have to worry about that. I do. So I have to be efficient. If I want to keep up with like guys like you and Blake and Pat and Shelby and those guys,
right,
I have to be efficient on this thing versus I'm going to roll all out and get as many calories as I can.
At what point do your arms start to bend? Are your legs all the way locked out?
Think about a deadlift. You know, you're trying to move the knees and hips at the same time, opening themselves up. So once the arms clear the kneecap, you want to make sure you pull. So you're still continuing to drive with the legs. The minute that the knees clear and the bar can pass over, then we're bending our arms and finishing the movement. All right, so let's take a look and see how Shelby rows. Okay, so now we're talking about how you're driving with the legs and you're pulling back to the chest. Everything looks good. Your chain movement is really good. Driving through. One thing to think about, not just with you, but with everybody, is the movement of the heels. A lot of people tend to drive too hard through the heels.
Yeah.
And that will cause the rower to move themselves backwards, from driving too hard with the legs. I didn't see any of that. I didn't see any chain movement moving too much. You had really good posture on the rower. Can you show me what bad posture would look like?
Yeah, I think what I see a lot of people do is they'll push really hard with the legs, but then on that recovery, they're trying to touch the front of that, and so their heels are coming way up.
Yeah. You don't have to do that. You're just looking to bring the chain in as much as possible while staying efficient. Notice how his back's starting to roll over, I should say. And you don't want that. You're just looking to get the chain in as much as possible while remaining in that upright position. Driving through the legs. And for those people that tend to drive too hard with the legs, think about not moving your heels. So think about unstrapping or just leaving your heels in those stirrups and just not using them. And just putting them up. Same exact thing. Now row. So now you're pushing equally with the legs and pulling equally with the arms. You're trying to get that efficient row while leaving your legs unstrapped.
with row posture, like we're talking about, like what I've always used is kind of the 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock position, right? So I'm leaning forward, but I'm keeping that good back posture, just like we do with all of our lifts, right?
Exactly.
So I'm using my entire core as opposed to trying to lean forward, and now I'm using my back and arms to pull on that. So if I'm keeping that good posture up top, I end up getting a lot less fatigued over time than I would if I'm trying to really lean in and lean back with that movement.
And you can find the people that have bad posture throughout the day, and then when you actually get them into a good posture setting and then have them row for a little bit, they're like, oh, well, my back hurts. And then you look at them as a coach and say, well, you actually have really good posture. But they don't sit like that on a normal basis.
those
They're
spinal
like, oh, man, my
erectors are not
spine
used
hurts
to
or my back hurts. I'm like,
keeping
oh, it
yourself.
looks really good. You know, and there's a lot of different theories out there on how you should row. Again, this is not the only theory that you should think about. There's numerous ways, you know, but how can you be efficient over time?
Yeah. So if we're talking about key points, things that I shouldn't do, all right? Major things I shouldn't do, all right? So go.
I want to make sure that we're in a nice upright position.
Okay.
All right. As the chain moves itself in, I don't want to be dropping and bringing it back up. Notice how the chain starts to move. We're outside of that box that we were talking about before. Driving too hard with the legs. If you're driving too hard with the legs and your butt cheeks are hurting when you get up, you're driving too hard with the legs. We want to make sure that we're pulling to the chest. Above the head, I'm just going to tell you, no matter who you talk to, or even above the chest area, you go up to the clavicle or up to the neck. Anybody you talk to, it's just not an efficient row.
Plus, the chain will come out of that little area.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not an efficient
That's
row.
part of being coachable. And
Exactly.
one of those things that you got to do is realize that, you know, whoever is giving you advice might know a little bit more about it, and then hey, maybe I should try that or follow that. That's just being coachable, and that's something that everybody needs to do, no matter what.
Well, and I see that, I mean, and everybody's body's built different. You know, we have really tall people that are doing the rows. We have really short people.
Oh, yeah.
And I see that, you know, there's just a huge difference between the way somebody rows. I mean, even between us, you know.
Like femur length has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, and so the pull has a lot to do with it. But I think as long as we're working on overall smooth movement and making sure that the chain's not moving up and down,
Right.
we're going to do a whole lot better and being able to balance out the lower body versus upper body movement on it.
So I think at the end of the day, you just need to be, you know, cognizant of who you are as an athlete and figure out what is going to be the best way for me to do the row versus, you know, following another athlete. You have to find out what your best quality is on it. And
Greg, thanks so much for coming on.
Anytime. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah. So the way we'll probably do this from now on is a couple times a month we'll have something about what we're seeing in the gym and maybe issues that we need to deal with. And then we'll have a couple of other episodes about just absurd
random
junk
topics
that come up all the time. Because as the CrossFit Granbury almost professional gym that we are, we're constantly working with.
Close, man. We're this close. We just can't get above it.
I don't know if we'll ever be there. We're always talking about just other things, whether that's finances or how far we can run after we've chugged a gallon of carbonated milk. So
It's still a good question.
it's an idea. It's a
Carbonated
concept.
milk?
Exactly.
Sounds like a terrible idea.
That's what we're trying to get at. Yeah,
Somebody that's lactose intolerant, and then see how that works.
I like what you're thinking. All right,
Keep
everybody.
your heads up.
Hey, if you're part of the gym, make sure that you're clicking that like button, subscribe. All right, we'll see everything goes from here on. I hope this has been helpful for everybody. Really, thank y'all for tuning in and checking us out. So it's recording right now.
The lips, the tip of the tongue, the teeth. The lips, the tip of the tongue, the teeth.
That's definitely going in.